my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. We have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's being easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time.
Holding in my hand an official government document that was not intended for public distribution, but it was released by the New York Times. Called this the beginning of the 2020 Great Depression in America. We're already in a recession, and that's not just me saying. Bank of America just warned all their clients with this urgent note. We are officially declaring that the economy has fallen into a recession, joining the rest of the world, and it is a deep plunge. Jobs will be lost, wealth will be destroyed, and confidence depressed. Hell is coming. America will end as we know it. Capitalism does not work in an 18-month shutdown. Something 10 times worse than what happened in 2008. But it's about to get a lot worse. Nouriel has no time to waste. Deutsche Bank economists already warned their clients. The U.S. economy is currently undergoing a truly unprecedented shock that is likely to continue for some time, with the spread of the virus set to accelerate further in the coming weeks.
Now, what are you going to tell your kids and your grandkids 25 years from now when they say, gee, Daddy, gee, Grandpa, what were you doing other than the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the world?
But the announcement was a focal point for regulators of different types to recognize that digitization and the digitization of the plumbing and other aspects of our financial system, including payment transfers, et cetera, it is coming. What I would say, just the natural economic forces that it unleashes, taking fat out of the system, for lack of a better term, it's happening. Now, we have to recognize that that's happening, recognize our mission, safety and soundness, investor protection, fair markets, and ensure that as that digitization takes place, we're being true to those principles. But we should not be fighting that digitization, because if we fight it, it will go around us.
Well, thank you. That mirrors my feelings on it, and I assume that when you say it is coming...
I'm sorry, Senator, it's here.
This year.
It's here. It is here already.
Yeah, I see. It's here. Yeah, it is here. And
the dollar is going to take a hit soon, and it could be a big one. Why? Well, a lot of reasons. We understand the environment we are in. We have a Federal Reserve who already has a completely new digital system ready to roll out. You understand? We've been hearing about it. Digital. I've been talking about this for years, okay? And not just me, a lot of guys, a lot of girls out here explaining digital dollar. The dollar's going away. I've told you specifically. You're going to tell your grandchildren at one point, you're going to show them a dollar. And you're going to say, we used to use these to buy things in the stores. Now I use them for wallpaper. The dollar is going away. At one point, there is no doubt there's a completely new system being ready to get rolled out.
One of the things that I'm looking at and that I've talked about for many, many years is the need for a global reset. And in a reset, that means we have to go to a completely new system because the current system is all used up. So do you think that that is a possibility, and what do you think that's going to look like?
I think the reset started happening post-2008. A lot of attempts started happening, but it was too slow. You cannot just see it. People like to see things in a big explosion format in order to realize it. But you and I, we've been monitoring it carefully with the intervention of the IMF with the SDR, okay? Yes. And they have the ESDR, which is something that already Christine Lagarde, before she left office, laid the technical foundation using the distributed ledger technology with the member states to distribute the SDR to them. So in a way, now the SDR is becoming an even more of a crypto format type of world currency. And this is what it is actually, although they call it special drawing rights, but it's actually a new currency that was actually designed initially in 1969 to replace the US dollar as a reserve currency. And a lot of countries, they don't want now the US dollar to, this dominance, this hegemony, because the US, they have weaponized the US dollar. And a lot of countries, they don't like that. They don't. Now, two scenarios for the reset. Either they actually do it, the gentleman way, like the Bretton Woods, they sit together and they agree, or they let the system collapse, which apparently this is what they are doing. Okay, leave it until it collapses, then everyone is going to run for their lives. But then the new system will come up, which
a joint payment system in order to eventually cut their dependence on the Western financial system. Well, joining me to discuss more on this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time with us. The countries that make up the BRICS bloc, they're also members of the G20. So what's the driving force behind ditching the dollar, given that they're also members of the G20?
Well, because the dollar is the world reserve currency, but does not represent or protect their economies in any way. Look, Brazil, China, Russia, India, South Africa, these are nations that look at themselves as being vitally important on the world stage, and yet are completely dependent on the US dollar, and therefore the carrot and stick analogy applies here. We give you a carrot if you're good, says the US, or we give you the stick if you're bad, in the form of sanctions, right? And so these countries have decided we're not going to be subjected to sanctions anytime the West, or specifically the United States, wants to punish us. And the only way to do that is to break their dependency on the global system and the dollar as the world's reserve currency, now, which is the payment processing system. So really what they're competing with is the SWIFT bank system, right? So right now, if you're sending money overseas from a US bank, you have to use, or any Western country, you use that SWIFT system that is set up in Belgium. And that prevents money laundering in theory and all that kind of thing. But what the BRICS nations are doing is saying, well, we don't need to use the SWIFT system because we don't want to be subjected again to US sanctions, because if the US is sanctioning you, you can't move money using that SWIFT system. So what's really interesting is, number one, they're creating a payment system that would go around SWIFT. But how do you do that when you have 5 major countries that all have their own currencies? And one of the ways they're doing that is by using possibly cryptocurrency to do that. That would translate their currencies into a single cryptocurrency that is then used through the system and then formulated, I guess, when it gets into their country, back into their own personal currency. So essentially you're taking currency from one, sending it through as a cryptocurrency, and then back on the other end into transforming it into another currency. And that allows them, again, to get around this SWIFT system in a way that no one had really thought about in the past, because crypto already has all of those things in place.
Quite honestly, it's a huge transfer of wealth that's happening right now. The last time I saw something like this was back during 1994 to 1995.
Now, to talk about the whole crypto kind of world, I got to this from the kind of the payments thing, because I've been looking for a way in which we could take the cost of payments down by 99%, the way we've taken out the cost of trading in securities. In the payments world, we use the term, we oftentimes use the term of the payments rails. There's the credit card rails, there's checking rails, there's the FedWire rails. Moves around. So let's to understand how I think to think about the cryptocurrency world, is there are 3 parts of it: the blockchain, the token, and the protocol. And the 3 of them operate together to create one solution, one integrated solution that has the capacity to revolutionize the way we move things of value around the world. Let me use a railroad analogy to make the point. The token is the equivalent of the boxcar. It's the thing into which you embed something of digital value that needs to be moved from one place to another, from one part of a blockchain to another. The blockchain is the cargo invoice, is the invoice in the cargo manifest. And the rails is the protocol. And you have to think about all 3 as one integrated solution that enables you to accomplish the purpose of moving anything of value around the world at the speed of light at no cost, the way we talk about email today. People who just talk about blockchain are talking about something very interesting, but it's a piece of enterprise technology that's an advanced database, and a private blockchain unconnected to the global, to the Bitcoin or another digital currency blockchain is the equivalent of the intranet. Remember when we had intranets to begin with, where it was really cool, you could do internal communication with people in your own companies, but it wasn't really until those intranets were connected via the internet protocol to other intranets to create the World Wide Web of intranets called the Internet, that the world changed. The world is going to change in finance when we connect the private blockchains via the Bitcoin or Ethereum or other protocol to the other blockchains in the world, have a global blockchain that's the World Wide Web of blockchains that'll fundamentally change the way in which not only do we move value around the world at the speed of light, but also in which we actually fundamentally change the way in which we compute, because it's the fourth computing paradigm I've experienced in my lifetime, the decentralized computing paradigm. That is the vision of where we can really go with this that's transformational. Now, the first step will be the intranets, the blockchains, as those get deployed. But that's not the endpoint, that's just the first step. And go into all that.
Crypto, another one of your interests, and you've kind of gotten into that, but we've just seen a huge meltdown over the past 12, 15 months. Are you still a believer?
So if we'd been sitting here together in 2002, we probably were. You would have asked me, the internet. We've just seen this huge meltdown in the last 12 to 15 months. Are you still a believer? Right?
Yep.
And so the answer is yes. Now the digital currency solution is the most important technological advance I've seen since the internet. It has the capacity to do lots more, but it certainly has the capacity to enable us to move anything of value around the world at the speed of light at no cost. It has three components. It has a token of value, which is called the Bitcoin. It has an accounting mechanism, which is called the blockchain. But the most important piece, which is one that people aren't focusing on, is the protocol. The underlying protocol by which we agree to conduct these transactions. So you use a series of protocols every day, and you don't even think about them. You don't think about the internet protocol. You don't think about the simple mail technology protocol. You don't think about the file transfer protocol. You don't think about the high text translation protocol. I go through them, right? You just make use of the technology, and the protocols make it work. The people who really understand what's going on with digital currencies understand that putting these protocols in place, the blockchain protocol, the Ethereum protocol, the the Ripple protocol, and then enabling those protocols to cause transactions to occur. And then those transactions can be defined very broadly as not just moving things of value, but anything that's got an information content is extraordinarily transformative. The focus on the value of the token is distracting and uninformative.
The system now is at its end, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean it's not going to go on for a little while, but I happen to believe with every fiber of my being that there is an entirely new system just getting ready to be rolled out. When this one here finally, however they're going to end it. See, that's what worries me more than anything else. Right now, we're in this period of, euphoria with regard to the stock market. The illusion of the market keep people distracted via any mechanism they possibly can. Our politicians, the mouthpieces for the central banks, all of them. Anyway, so what I worry about is when this thing actually is done, how are they going to implement it? In other words, we're going to need something catastrophic to happen, because what they're going to do is they're going to sell it. They're going to be like, okay, well, this system here, it's not working anymore. So what we're going to do here is we're going to implement this new system. Right? They already have it all planned out. And then they're going to introduce us to the people who are going to beg for a solution. They're going to create a monumental problem. Notice what I just said. They're going to create a monumental problem, something of probably nearly biblical proportions. And then they're going to say, we have a solution for you. Oh, yeah. And this is what it is. And people, no matter what it is, are going to beg for it. They're going to take whatever they can get, because why? They dictate the rules. We are nothing. We are a means to an end, period. That's what this whole thing is all about. It's about control. On a scale that I think people are not going to believe moving forward.
And so importantly, because Interledger is in essence currency agnostic, it gives you the option to very easily tap into XRP to take advantage of the speed and the low cost of those payments. And so if you think about it, what Ripple is doing is Ripple is bringing the power of XRP to enterprises through RippleNet software, and we're bringing the power of XRP to developers. And so XRP Ledger, it's unbelievably cheap. You can send a payment of almost any size for less than 1/100th of a penny. It is exceptionally fast. You can send that exact payment in 3 seconds. And importantly, XRP is very, very liquid. And then money. We all like money. When we think about, at Spring, when we think about money, we don't just think about XRP or we don't just think about cryptocurrency. We think about all the money. And so I think importantly, if you're thinking about all the money, what does that mean? You have to start with fiat. You can't think about all the money if you're not thinking about fiat. The world operates on fiat. It's really a platform for thinking about all the money. Fiat, and of course, obviously cryptocurrencies, which have a great role to play in building the internet of value. And finally,
so first, why Interledger? Question, why don't cryptocurrencies work for payments today? Imagine a scenario like this. You go into a shop and you say, hey, can I pay with Ether? And the person says, what are you talking about? Everyone else is annoyed. Doesn't work. How about for micropayments? A lot of people in the cryptocurrency space are really hyped about micropayments these days. Only problem is that a lot of micropayment solutions recreate the exact same problem, where one person will go to a website and be like, okay, can I pay for this website with Lightning? No, sorry, we only accept this other one. So really, the main problem, the reason why cryptocurrencies are not useful for payments today in most cases, is that in order to pay someone, you have to be on the same payment network. The flip side of that is that if you want to accept payments, you have to accept a ton of different payment methods because somebody might want to pay you with one of these many options. The traditional payment space is super fragmented. So in every country, there's different payment methods supported. And if you're a merchant, you have to support a ton of different options because you don't want to turn away customers if they come to pay with something. The fundamental problem is that payment networks at their core are disconnected. There are different payment systems from banks to blockchain systems, mobile money networks, etc. And all of them are disconnected from one another. This has given rise to a lot of people talking about the idea of the Internet of Value or Internet of blockchains or payments or kind of pick your favorite term, but it's this idea of the Internet of money, effectively. And the reason that we talk about that is because what we need is an internetworking system for payment networks. And the word internet actually comes from internetworking. So what we need is a system that just connects up all of these in the background and just makes it work. Internetworking on the internet is really what makes the magic happen. So when I plug into the internet, I don't really have to think about how it works in the background. I just plug in, and suddenly I'm connected to everybody else. That's the magic of internetworking, where I can be on a completely different internet service provider than you are. I plug in, and it just works. Unless you're trying to do video calls. Those almost never work. So how do we solve this payment problem once and for all? We go back to this idea of the Internet of Value. How do we create this internet-like system for money? As many of you know, Interledger has taken a lot of inspiration from the history and the architecture of the internet itself. We started with this very, very shallow analogy to, actually, before we were thinking of the analogy with the internet, we were thinking about the analogy with the web, the value web. And it was a very, very shallow, like we want it to work kind of like the internet does, but it was a shallow analogy. And as we went on, we started copying more and more and more from the internet itself, and realized the systems were there was actually really good parallels with that. And why copy from the internet? One thing that I think is so amazing to reflect on is the fact that the internet was designed for computers that looked like that, but still works today because it was designed so well with these nice abstractions that it's able to work with the computers and phones that we use today, even though it was designed for this clunky old technology. That's it. That's all the internet really is about at the core layer. With Interledger, again, open standard, connects different types of networks. It's use case agnostic, and it's about doing packetized. So some people have heard me say this before, but I'll throw it out to the audience. What is Interledger's total addressable market size? all the money. Nobody wanted to feed it. Yeah, it's all the money, because what we're really talking about with this idea of the Internet of Value is creating a single global payment network that connects literally everyone and processes maybe not 100%, but 90+% of all the money. That's what we're talking about.
You're also making an announcement yourself in terms of your backing of PayID. Can you explain what this is and why this sort of simplifies how crypto had transferred money in the past?
Absolutely. So at its core, Ripple has been all about enabling what we call an Internet of Value. Let's make all of these different networks that really don't talk to each other interoperable. We've all had the experience where, when you ask a friend, you say, hey, I need to pay you money. Are you on Venmo? Are you on PayPal? Or outside the United States, maybe Alipay or PayU. Isn't it funny, when I ask somebody for a phone number, I don't say, are you on AT&T? Are you on Verizon? I just get their phone number. The idea behind PayID is to simplify the ability to send someone money the same way, to make it easy as sending an email. I don't ask someone, are you on Google or Yahoo? I just send an email. And so PayID enables, whether you're a large bank, or I'll use a very successful regional bank in Skyline Bank. If you're an account holder there and I want to send you money, it should be as easy as typing Brad $Garlinghouse. And whether it's resolving to a Byline Bank or to Bitcoin, all of this naming infrastructure can be much simplified and interoperable.